Well, this is it, ladies and gentlemen, the final video on our barn find R32 Skyline Restoration.
We took a huge risk buying this R32 from a paddock full of barn find Skylines for $8,500. And while it was a complete car, it was in much worse condition than we first thought. But we were up to the challenge, and since then we've fixed all of the rust, painted the engine bay, refreshed the RB20 turbo motor, and completely restored the underside of the car.
And the last thing left to do is to get the exterior of the car looking as good as the underside of the car looks. And that means we're gonna have to paint this thing. So before the Skyline is ready for paint, we do have a couple of jobs we need to do in terms of bodywork.
I do still need to finish the rust repairs we did on the rear quarters. I just need to final weld these, and I'm trying to use as little bog as possible. It looks like we've got these pretty good. It'll just need a light skim of bog there. And I've already laid the bog over the small dings that we had on the body, so we just need to sand that down. But the body for the most part is like really straight, so all we need to do is a quick 600 over most of the body.
And then we're pretty much ready to paint this thing, which is freaking awesome. I'm so keen to see this thing all one color, looking beautiful again.
I decided to paint the bumpers, front guards, bonnet and spoiler first, as it's much easier to get a nice finish when you lay the parts out flat. So we removed the rear bumper and the GDR spoiler and gave them all a good wash to remove the last of the dirt from sitting for 10 years in a paddock. This is also a really good chance to double check there's no rust developing on the underside of those panels. Once they're all clean, it's time to lightly sand the panels before sealing them with primer.
The front guards are now fully prepped and ready to paint.
On this channel, I really like to do as much of the work to the cars as possible, including painting them. And every car I paint, I'm getting a little bit better each time, so it's gonna be interesting to see how this one turns out.
There are two different types of paint you can use. The easiest is a single stage paint like the one we used on the rear wheel drive Evo build. You simply spray the color on the car and essentially you're done. On the barn find Skyline, we're using the more complicated two-stage method. This is when you apply a base coat of color first, then apply a clear coat layer over the color that essentially protects the base coat from UV rays and gives it that super shiny look. Once we've got our paint mixed and poured into our $49 Bunnings paint gun, I wipe down all of our panels with prep wash and we're ready to lay down some paint.
So I'm now at the back of the shop in the Drop the Anchor room. If you didn't know what Drop the Anchor is, it's one of the businesses that I own. It's a merch label, droptheanchorclothing.com.au if you want to check it out. But
this is clearly also the room where I let all my panels dry, but look at that. The guards look absolutely fantastic. Both of them came out amazing. Really happy with that. The bumper's looking super nice. Look at that. So shiny. Looking brand new.
But unfortunately, I have made one rookie mistake. Now, I don't paint very often, and because of that, I completely forgot you're supposed to do a control coat. Basically, it's just like a mist coat over the top with the metallics to make sure that things don't look streaky.
I forgot to do that with the bonnet, and as you can see, it looks pretty streaky, so that's a massive rookie move on my part, but luckily it's quite easily fixable.
I'll give it a quick 600 sand down and then I will repaint it, but do the guide coat. Luckily, I bought plenty of paint, so repainting it is not an issue. But now we move on to the main bodywork on the body. We have a couple more hours to go on that before we can throw the car in our makeshift booth and paint it. All right, it's time to finish off this welding finally. I have been procrastinating this welding for so long, and it's finally time to finish it off, so let's go.
Once we've finished all of the welding, I threw some etch primer onto the metal to make sure it didn't rust in the future. Then it's time to lay down our bog, sand the bog, then lay primer over the bog, and once we've done that, I think we've earned ourselves a coffee.
Good dog.
That is some mediocre coffee. And just like that, the bodywork is done. That section of bodywork just then took me 2 whole days. I know it goes really fast in the videos, but dang, bodywork is just the bane of my existence. But I have to say, I'm very proud of the work that we've done.
Specifically in this area here, because this was just extremely difficult to get perfect. We took so much metal out of this section, and I am by no means a panel beater, so to get like this section nice and straight, so difficult. But I'm very happy with how it has turned out. We've got our seam sealer in here as well. Everything is good to go. The rear quarters are also done.
But that means we can now officially get the car off the hoist onto the ground and start building our makeshift spray booth. As you can probably hear, it is currently raining, which isn't the best conditions to be painting a car. But we need to get it done today, and I'm mildly optimistic that we can make this thing look absolutely awesome. So let's pull it off the hoist and let's get it done.
Before we can paint the car, I sanded the whole thing down using 600 grit sandpaper on a machine sander. Then it only took heaps of hours to mask the whole thing up, and we're almost ready to paint.
And finally, after so much prep, we are ready to paint the Skyline. The makeshift booth has been set up. Look at that. It may not look like much, but this is actually a pretty effective setup. Let me show you inside.
So I've fully prep washed the car and it's ready literally to be painted now. And as you can see, the most important thing when you are painting a car is having as much light as possible. That is because
you want to be able to see the overlaps when you're spraying. The most frustrating thing, it's really annoying when you can't see those overlaps and then you go back and look later and realize you missed a complete line of clear. Lucky for me, Woz is an electrician, and so he's basically set up a bunch of lights for me in here, and wow, we're pretty well lit and ready to go. So now is the moment of truth. I'm slightly nervous. I just really want this to pay off. So much prep work. So let's paint this frickin' car.
As you can see here while I'm painting, I am massively constrained by space, but we're making it work. I really concentrate on making sure my paint is overlapping properly, and if the gun's spraying well, generally speaking, the base coat will lay down really nicely. One of the most annoying things is the compressor air line that gets in the way all of the time.
The base coat laid down absolutely beautifully. To be honest, I couldn't be happier. So what I do now is just rub it down quickly with the tack cloth once that's flashed off, just to make sure that there's no random bits sitting on top of the paint, and because we're not in a proper booth, there will be, so the tack cloth really does a big job there. Then we'll lay down the clear. So
look at that rear quarter. Oof, she looks good.
And just like that, our R32 barn-find Skyline is now freshly painted. But I've just done like a 12-hour day on this thing, so we're gonna have to come back in the morning to see exactly how good or bad this thing looks in the light. So I'll see you guys in the morning. Bye. All right, so we are back, and I've just been inside and had a quick look at the car, and I pulled all of the masking off the car, and I am pleasantly surprised. It is always a very nerve-wracking experience coming in and looking at the car the day after you painted it the night before. But I think we've definitely outdone ourselves with this one. I'm actually really happy with the results. You ready?
So take a look at that. Look how freaking good that looks. There is one run which is like right here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it in camera that I have to fix, but like, other than that, how good does that look?
I haven't yet had a chance to respray the bonnet, so that is still looking streaky, but the rest of the car is beautifully sprayed, nice and even, and I honestly couldn't be happier. And now is the fun part. So right now, with the help of my good friend Woz, we are gonna put the car back together.
We decided to put the passenger door back on the car first, so I had to turn the car around outside. And to be honest, any excuse to drive this car and hear those beautiful turbo RB20 noises is always a good thing.
Boom. So shiny. So happy. On to the next thing. Rear bumper. Let's go.
Time to throw the genuine GDR wing on the boot. Hell yeah. How good is that? Absolutely insane JDM goodness. And now it is time to do the front end. Here we go. Boom. Don't know if that worked or not, but you'll know because you're watching the edit right now.
This car has sat in the shop with no front panels for so long, I've honestly forgotten what it looks like complete. But piece by piece, as we put this thing back together, the once rusty barn-find Skyline is really starting to look like it belongs back on the streets.
Whew, that is so satisfying.
So now I have to attempt to put the bonnet on all by myself because I'm the only one here at the workshop right now. So wish me luck. I've not been squatting enough for this. Whoa, jeez, that was close. Oh! Yes! It definitely feels awesome to have the whole car complete and back together, but I have to admit the bonnet is definitely the most disappointing part of the whole paint job.
And that is because of all the streaks that you can see in the bonnet. But do not worry,
I am going to repaint the bonnet, but at the moment the weather outside is just too cold. So I've got to wait for a warmer day before I can repaint it, which means it won't be painted perfectly in this video.
but it's still shiny, so that's good. And overall, like, holy crap. The car looks so good.
But there are two more jobs we need to address before we can call our barn find restoration complete. And the first one is the interior. So when we picked this thing up, the interior was in really bad shape. Although it was complete, which is what I was looking for, when I bought it, the dash was absolutely cactus, and we've replaced this, but clearly we're missing the vents, and we've done a manual swap. So we need something to fill this hole. That's what she said. I purchased these off Just Jap online, and these are gonna transform the way this interior looks and just completely finish it off. Brand new vents is something that, oh, look at that. It's like the cherry on top for this interior. Vent number 2. So satisfying when they just click in like that. Oof. Look at that. How good does that look? Now, I found it really difficult to find the manual shifter surround online, so what I did was modify the auto one that we already had. We sell these universal shifter boots online. Very handy in this situation. So what I did was just cut it out really nicely on the top to make room for our shifter. Then underneath, you just cut the shifter boot to size and then super glue it underneath, and boom, we have a shifter surround that works with our manual setup. Of course, we need a shift knob. I'm just throwing one of these Nismo shift knobs on. Both of these available on my website, twostepgarage.com. Oh, look at that. So good. Works absolutely perfectly. I'm actually really happy with that. This interior is starting to look really tidy. And I feel like the older you get, the more you appreciate a tidy stock OEM style interior. Maybe it's just me, but the last thing we need in this interior, of course, is a steering wheel. Now I am dropping our OEM steering wheel off this week to be reupholstered, and I am gonna fit this in this car. But for now, to complete the interior, we're throwing in a brand new TSG steering wheel. They're available in flat, medium, or deep dish, and the quality is through the roof. I absolutely love them. I've chosen a medium dish. They come with these awesome Angry Boy horn buttons. I designed these myself, available in black, pink, or teal, and you get to choose which one you want at checkout, which is pretty freaking cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this on the car. And of course, the best part, check that out. Holy moly. The interior is now fairly complete and looks so good. So we've got one more job we need to do before we can get this thing outside and see it for the first time in the daylight, complete.
Now that the body of the car is looking so good, the wheels are just not cutting the mustard. And since I'm a bit short on time, we're gonna use the old YouTube magic. 3, 2, 1. Oof, that's fancy.
As I pull the car out of the shop, I can't help but think about the insane journey this car has been on. From being a street car in Japan to being neglected and left for dead in a paddock in Australia, to being found by two idiots who love cars and being given a completely new lease on life. This project was so much bigger than I anticipated when we first picked it up, but I'm so glad we did. When you look back at just how bad this car was, the transformation is pretty incredible. And now this R32 Skyline is ready to be enjoyed as it was intended the day it left the showroom floor.
And with that, we have now come to the end of the Barn Find R32 restoration. And unfortunately, as you would have seen in the thumbnail, I'm going to have to sell this car. My intentions when we bought this car was always to restore it and keep it. All of the old JDM cars are skyrocketing in value, and these things are such a good investment. But a couple of weeks ago, I had an opportunity present itself to me that I just could not turn down. And that means I had to sell one of my cars. As you know, on this channel, I love to build weird, fun, quirky stuff. We've got the rear wheel drive Evo, we've got the turbo Datsun 280ZX, we have our turbo drift car, and out of all the cars that I own, the OEM factory Skyline just doesn't quite fit into the mold of the rest of what we do on this channel. So it makes total sense to sell this thing to someone who can really enjoy it after we've brought it back from the grave. Behind this veil is our brand new project, and you guys will understand when we drop that project next week on the channel why I'm selling this car and how exciting the next project is going to be. It's easily the biggest thing we've ever done on this channel. It's going to be massive. But thank you guys so much for joining me on the journey with the Barn Find R32 Skyline.
I couldn't be happier with the way this thing has turned out. It's absolutely beautiful, and I really hope that someone buys it and enjoys it for what it is.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe if you can. It really helps the channel. Drop a comment, and I will see you guys in the next video when we're releasing our new project. Poos! Bye! Look at that, an absolutely beautiful, fully restored JDM R32 Skyline. So good, very happy. Bye!